What's good, y'all? It's your boy Herb.
And it's your girl Mo.
And welcome to our soon-to-be
World-renowned podcast.
Young, Black, and Figured It Out. What up, though?
What it do?
Whatever we tell it. Listen, we are excited to be here.
Jazz.
How you feeling?
So good.
Are you?
Yeah, don't get me
that.
to singing. I'm a little goosed up. You feel me?
Are you? Okay, yeah, it's okay. But you
Not great.
You actually can sing, though.
Why, thank you.
Yeah,
the man
yeah.
never admits it, and I appreciate it.
I ain't gonna play you in front of the people, but it's okay.
It's recorded. He said it. We will all remember.
Yeah, I got you for sure. Listen, so we excited to be here today. We have an amazing episode
Woot, woot.
that folks can look forward to. Talking about one of the things that really I think we both love to talk about. It's a part of culture, but also part of music. It's the evolution of hip hop, right? From turntables to TikTok.
Don't you
And that was a bar right there, yes. So usually before this time, we would do the what did you figure out today? But we ain't got time for that. Why we ain't got time for that?
We have a special guest.
We got a special guest in the building. Let's clap it up for Ben Ortiz in the building here today. Yes. Here.
What up, though? I like that. What up, though?
What up, though?
You know, me and her both from Detroit.
Makes
You know what I'm
sense.
saying?
Yes.
I got my Pistons representing right here
love
in
that
my
right
hat.
there.
Shout out, by the way, I love Rochester, New York. Shout out to Big Beef Stew,
Yep.
Isaiah Stewart, our power forward on the Detroit Pistons right
We
now.
know. Yes.
Big fan of Rochester for many reasons, but yet another beef stew.
Yes.
All right.
Love it, sure. Hold it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm very caffeinated. I drank a
There
lot
you
of
go.
coffee on my drive up
Love
here,
it.
so I'm hype. I'm good
Yes.
to go. Hope my mic sounds nice. All of that.
No, you sound great. And tell people a little bit about yourself.
What's
What
up?
you
First of
hear.
all,
Yes.
I do want to hear what you have figured out recently. I want to know at what point, we have an understanding about things. You know what I mean? I want to help you figure all of this stuff out. You know what I mean?
I love that.
So anyhow, yes, thank you for having me. I'm Ben Ortiz. I work at something called the Cornell University Hip Hop Collection.
Wonderful.
All right. Which I can tell you all about. I don't know if you have questions leading into that, but I can zig and zag as you want. As I just said, I'm from Detroit, Michigan, Southwest Detroit. I live in Ithaca, New York now. I've lived there for 21 years.
Hold it down. Yes.
If you ever been to Ithaca, it takes a certain fortitude, you know what I'm saying?
You gotta be built for it.
Hey, here's
Built
my
to
biggest,
last.
piece of advice is become an outdoorsy person.
Yes.
Okay? Take
that.
advantage of everything the outdoors has to offer.
I love that.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about with hip hop. This is hip hop's 50th anniversary.
Absolutely.
And I'd like, we can talk a little bit about why that is, because that's a thing. Did it just magically appear on that day or what?
Right.
But tell me what direction you want me to take with it all.
Well, first starting with going back to working at the Cornell Hip Hop Collection, explain a little bit about what that is, just to give that some exposure, because that is an amazing thing, which folks even come upon without even necessarily having the connection to that. So hearing more about it probably be great.
Word. All right. So the Hip Hop Collection at Cornell University started 16 years ago. All right. 16 years ago, there was a collection of about 6,000 items that was deposited in the archival library at Cornell University. So the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is housed within the Division of Rare and Manuscript Collections, which is one of the many, many libraries at Cornell University, right? So it's as I just said, rare and manuscripts, or some people might say archival. Even the word archival is not in our title, but it's the archival library at Cornell. All right. So these 16 years ago, a man named Johann Kugelberg, who wrote a book. Who put together a book, I should say, because it's mostly visuals. He put together a book featuring images of hip-hop artifacts. This came out in 2006.
Gotcha.
Following the release of the book, which the book has, 300 or so images that made it into the book, party and event flyers, photographs, specifically photographs by a man named Joe Conzo Jr., the man who took hip-hop's baby pictures, and some scans of vinyl record labels and album covers. 300 or so from his collection of 6,000 or roughly, made it into the book. Following the release of the book, he wanted to institutionalize that collection of material. Now, why would you want to do that? Because when you have a group of materials such as that, important cultural artifacts, meaningful sentimental items, or anything in between, all right, you can either keep it in your attic, keep it in your basement where no one's really going to see it. Maybe you get a house fire.
Right.
Maybe there's a flood.
Right.
Maybe you know what I'm saying, pass away, and your kids or your grandkids are kind of like, what are we going to do with all this old stuff?
Right.
Let's
Toss
get-
it away or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or any other number of things. Humidity,
Right.
light exposure,
Right.
pest infestation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right?
It's just at risk for something that's so valuable.
It just is. Now, some people do go that route, keep it all with them in their home or whatever. But his decision was to institutionalize this stuff, not only to aid in the preservation of the material, but to make sure that the material could be used for education.
Right.
Look at that.
All right. So it's
Look at
about, just imagine you, the listener out there, have some group of materials that's important for some reason, or important to a group of people for some reason. It's not about judging what that reason is. It doesn't have to be the most important cultural artifacts ever, whatever. But keeping it to yourself where no one's going to see it does not give that material new life.
Right.
Whereas depositing it in a place such as a public archive, public research archive such as ours, it can get preserved and then made accessible for researchers, learning, exhibitions. It gets used in documentary films, all kinds of stuff. And this is giving this stuff new life, right? So I'm talking about this group of stuff that arrived in 2007, about 6,000 things. Fast forward to today, a decade and a half later, there's well over 250,000 things in the hip hop collection.
Wow.
All right. The collection. What's the collection? The collection refers to a collection of archives. All right. So starting with that first thing, I'm calling it a collection instead of an archive, because collection, this is a history class. Listen, there's going to be a pop quiz at the end of this podcast. We want please put your answers in the show notes or whatever in the comments section. Like and subscribe, all that. All right. Listen, a collection is an intentionally assembled group of material. Your record collection, your book collection, your shoe collection, whatever. You intentionally acquired those things or were given those things with the intent of putting the collection of those things together. An archive, technically, is the stuff you acquire in the course of kind of doing something else. Let's say that you're at your job, all right? And in the course of doing your job, you acquire lots of documentation, papers, whatever, emails, badges from some conference you went to. And you acquire all that stuff in the course of doing your job. So it's technically an archive about you and your job. Does that make sense? So the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is an intentional assembly of archives and collections.
Yeah.
Right, so that's real technical.
And what was brother's name, the first one? Joe something.
Johann Kugelberg.
Johann
That's close.
Kugelberg wrote the
Yeah.
book. The book is called Born in the Bronx, a visual record of the early days of hip hop. All right. Now, the photographer is Joe Conzo Jr. Shout out to Johann and Joe,
Shout out to Johann and Joe.
who are
Gotcha.
fantastic humans,
Yes.
doing great things on this earth.
Yeah.
Joe's moniker, by the way, is the man who took hip hop's baby pictures. So pretty much hip hop's earliest cultural documentarian
Yeah.
that we're aware of.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
dope. So and remember, jump in because I get to going. Okay.
I
So
got you.
you got me. Okay. good. So listen, one of the things that stand out, and you started to go this route anyway. Before we get into the deep questions that we got in here, is anytime I look at the anniversary of something that's evolved and doesn't have a designated we built this building on this day and it was completed.
We built this
That's
city.
key.
I
But
don't
with
think
hey, you was about to get bars.
I'm a DJ party, people. That
Anytime
might not
you hear the words,
maybe
it flow. But but when things like hip hop, which evolved over time, have an anniversary, I always think well, how did that come about? Who named this the anniversary, right? Do you have any insights into that? How did it become an anniversary, or what's the first year or day of hip hop?
Word. All right. So what we're celebrating this year, specifically on August 11th, all right, which has passed by now, but whatever, it's a whole year, right?
Yeah.
August 11th, 1973, 50 years ago, legend has it. And I say it like that because this is cultural folklore.
Oh, I love it.
Why is it folklore and not fact? Because there's no documentation of this particular thing happening. The only documentation we have is an invitation paper invitation that was given to people to show up to this event. Right? So what that means is a flyer, specifically an index card. There are images of this index card online. I do not know where the physical flyer index card invitation is, but long story short, Cindy Campbell, who is the sister of Clive Campbell, aka DJ Kool Herc. Cindy Campbell was arranging a party. She called it the back to school jam because she was trying to raise money for her back to school clothes, right? August 11th, 1973 is the party at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the West Bronx. She had her brother DJ a party. Now, he had been a DJ. He had been DJing parties. One of the things he observed as a DJ is that during specific songs with specific musical features known as a breakdown or a break beat, people who were, usually the best dancers in the room kind of like, all right, this is my time to shine. This is my time to show. Let me let loose a little bit. This is my latest move, my best move. And he also just certainly preferred the energy contained within a breakbeat. A breakbeat is take an entire composition with all the instruments and the vocalists of, usually this is in a soul, R&B, funk, rock, and even sometimes salsa and reggae songs, right? There's a moment, usually it's about 15 seconds to 30 seconds or so, where all of the instrumentation and vocals drop out and they all take a break and it's just the beat, just rhythm. This musical composition gets reduced to its essence, its rhythmic essence. All the melody is removed, just percussion. Usually it's a percussion solo, a drummer on a drum kit. But sometimes it's a duet. Maybe there's congas, bongos, claves, hand claps. Or in the case of somebody like James Brown, who's known to use his voice percussively, sometimes you hear it, ha, ain't it funky? Okay? Fundamentally converting his voice to a percussion instrument, which of course later on in life, we're going to start talking maybe about beatboxing, doing the same thing. But so James Brown has a little bit of a root on that tree, right? Break beats, people are losing their minds, but it's only 15 to 30, 45 seconds long. Kool Herc goes, how can I capture that lightning and make it last a little bit longer than that? So he decided at this party on August 11th, 1973, I'm going to debut something for this crowd at this particular party for no other reason than I just decided to do it. A technique that he calls the merry-go-round. And the merry-go-round is simply him playing only the breakbeat section of songs. That's it. Every other DJ before that fundamentally would play a song, start to finish. Kool Herc did not innovate to turntables or scratching, specifically the breakbeats, the usage of breakbeats, the sort of breaking the barrier of, as a DJ, you can play just a snippet of a song and then another snippet of another song and stitch those things together. So it was breakbeat A, breakbeat B, breakbeat C, breakbeat D. Later on, the innovation of looping one singular breakbeat on time. On time. Got to be on time. Later on, the innovation of looping one singular breakbeat using two copies of the same record, that did happen, but that's not what we cite at this party. August 11th, 1973 was the innovation, the genius innovation of just playing the breakbeats, reducing this party to rhythm only. And if you listen to these breakbeats, and you've heard them, they are percussive, rhythmic, energetic, produced in such a way that you feel it in your chest. All right, we've all been at those parties where if you got the right type of speakers, it makes your lungs thump. That's what we mean. We say it in your chest. Sound travels through air. There's air inside your lungs. Your chest literally does thump with the beat. All right, so this is what's going on at this particular party. Try to imagine yourself being somebody who had only ever been at a party where you only heard songs played start to finish. And a breakbeat was a thing that happens in the middle of lots of songs, but you never heard a DJ for like half an hour, 45 minutes, play just break beats, imagine how confused you'd be at first. And then imagine how everyone's like, wait, I know that break. Well, I know that. I see what he's doing. I like that. So it became a feature of a Kool Herc party. Later on, he hands the microphone to his friend Coke LaRock, who becomes the first MC in a hip-hop context. I stress hip-hop context because there's lots of spoken word art forms going way back to prehistory. He's not the first person to speak rhythmically. But in this context, Coke LaRock, Kool Herc's friend, is the first rapper in a hip-hop context. All right. Later on, Kool Herc goes, the people who are dancing to these break beats, the break dancers, well, he called them B-boys, break boys, and break girls. B-boys, B-girls. He coined that term, but that was not the thing that happened on August 11th, 1973. As you pointed out, Herb, it didn't all just land on the planet on that one date. But we conveniently cite this one date as the start. Is that right? Is that wrong? I am not prepared to say that. What I do know is that collectively the hip-hop community has decided that's the date that's the most important thing with the birth of hip-hop. Now, I also want to say, if we're going to use birth as a metaphor, you and me, we were not all we're going to be on the day we were born. Understand? So I don't have a problem with that particular idea of there being a birth date. But I also want to say, if there's a metaphor of a birth, that means there's a pregnancy. There's a gestation period. Okay? With regard to hip-hop specifically, I think the gestation period of hip-hop is much, 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 much longer, all right? Because we are talking about ancient traditions in some cases.
100%.
But we're also talking about really, really recent innovations just immediately preceding the, quote, birth of hip-hop, right? So it's just a long story about how hip-hop came to be.
Well, that's good, though. That's what we want to get into is like, where are we traveling with that, which is good. And funny enough, though, so where I actually heard that story, where I first originally like heard that and learned that was from Will Smith's book.
Oh.
I know she hates the fact that I love Will Smith.
I don't hate the fact. I just can't stand it. You're a stan.
Well, he was saying
Will Smith.
Yeah, he was
I'm a fan.
And
Will.
he would say he was one of the pioneers for MCs in hip hop. Just putting that out there. Yeah. But okay,
who's a pioneer?
Will Smith will say that. That's what he would say.
I don't think pioneer is the word for Will Smith.
Hey, I'm just quoting what he said in the book. But let's talk about that.
Who's his editor?
I like the way you think.
Well, let me tell you, I almost got in a fist fight in college one time because I said Will Smith was better than Mace. You got these arguments. Who's better than who? And who's better? It's as if we're talking about wrestlers or something, boxers, which is stupid.
Yeah.
These are artists.
Creating
stuff, but we talk about them like who's got the most, who's got the better 3-point shot percentage.
Yeah, who got the stats?
It shouldn't be discussed that way.
Right.
It's more subjective.
But way back in the day, I almost got in a fight because I was like, nah, the Fresh Prince is totally better than Mace. And he was like, that's some old soft stuff. I was like, no, here's some examples. I played some examples. I'm a Will Smith fan. Go ahead, Will.
But you would become a pioneer, though.
No.
Okay. Ooh, listen, we got to come back to that. We put that in the notes.
I like Will Smith. I don't have a problem with him.
Okay, all right, we ain't mad. Okay, so
got to stop slapping people.
I love the way you think. I'm just saying.
Hey, we just said okay. So
I don't want to cancel the man because of one thing.
Hey,
feel me?
I didn't cancel him.
He got to keep his hands to
I
himself.
just said he needed to take accountability. That's all.
So going back to this, so one of the things I was talking about with hip hop though is, and we can like weave in because there's like the chronological timeline, then there's just understanding it from like a macro level, But one of the things that I think you asked a really good question. It's like when we're talking about hip hop, are we talking about hip hop the music or hip hop the culture?
Right.
Or are those two things inseparable?
Right.
Right, when you think about that. And so one, what's your thoughts on that? And the second question I'll bring is like, how has hip hop served as a voice for marginalized communities since its birth to where it is now,
Yeah.
So two separate questions in that.
So hip hop is a culture. A culture is something that has many different components, including aesthetics, values, a sense of history, multiple generations, and art forms, right? So hip hop is all those things. Some sociologists might use the term subculture as a technical way of saying it's sort of an outgrowth of a larger culture that can get technical. But I do refer to it as a culture. I also refer to hip hop music as hip hop music. But if we're being technical about it, imagine if you hear the instrumental of rap song XYZ, meaning there's no vocals, it's just the beat. Are you listening to rap music at that point? Well, technically you're not, because there's no rapper present. You feel me? So rap music is this label that somewhere along the line, the music industry started to really kind of latch onto. I think it has to do with the first really successful commercial rap song being Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah.
Which came out in the summer of '79. And it's called Rapper's Delight. Somewhere along the line, rap music. Ironically, the first word of the song is hip hop. All right.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
yeah, when sometimes just to mess with people, because I be doing that sometimes, right? When I teach classes or I have students or whatever, and they say, "Who's your favorite hip hop artist?" I'll say a graffiti artist, or I'll say a break dancer, a breaker. There's political reasons why the term break dancer is not preferable, by the way, but I know I just used it because I want everyone out there listening to this to understand what I'm talking about. I might say a DJ. That's my favorite hip hop artist, and they'll look at me confused, huh? That's because everyone just does think that rap is the only thing that there is to do with hip hop. So I'm just trying to emphasize, it's not only that.
Why do you? So this is good. So, I don't remember. I remember part two, but why do you think that is? That hip hop as a culture that has all the different things has really gravitated towards just the artist or the rapper. Is it mainly because of, you think, just that first song that came out, or what has grown into that? Is it because the artist or the rapper has been able to monetize and are more visible?
Yeah.
What do you think kind of led to that?
So the entertainment industry, when it figured out that hip hop was a big potential moneymaker,
Right.
all right, needs to figure out a way to market this stuff, all right? And at first, they were following what the hip hop community had sort of organically determined, that the DJs were the Pied Pipers and the most important person responsible for facilitating everything. And the rappers were complementary to the DJ
absolutely.
In a way. But naturally, they're on the front of the stage, the rappers. They're the ones vocalizing. They're the ones who display their personality the most. So over time, the entertainment industry, as well as hip-hop itself, possibly as a result of the entertainment industry's forces or not, really started to try and market the personalities and the appearances of the rappers, all right? So let me try to illustrate maybe a comparison for maybe young people today who might not have the best context for what things might have been like back in the 70s. Let's talk about your favorite athlete, whoever that. Let me just, for argument's sake, let me just say LeBron James.
That's a great one to pick, yes.
Okay? Not my favorite. I should have said Isaiah Stewart. My bad. My fault. My
We
bad.
stick with LeBron. That's okay. That's a great one.
Let's go. They had a little thing too. LeBron, right? You know LeBron, but if you're really, 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 really into basketball, you also know who LeBron's agent is, who's LeBron's trainer, who's his chef, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Who's his son, and so on. You get to learn a little bit more about what's going on behind that one thing. But to be sure, the NBA and the sports media definitely markets LeBron. They don't go around marketing his chef or whatever I just said.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So there's a little bit of a comparison about why the music industry, the entertainment industry, specifically said these rappers are marketable.
Right.
The guy behind him manipulating the audio equipment, turntables and a mixer, not so marketable. Now that's not to say that DJs haven't been used to market, but for sure, dancers haven't been given enough love.
Right.
Certainly not since the early and mid 80s. Those are some very important, very extremely important hip hop artists, without which hip hop wouldn't be the same it is today.
Right.
And then there's the element of graffiti, right? Let me back up a step. You heard of the four elements of hip hop, right?
No.
Teach us.
Okay, so hip hop in circa the late 70s starts to get solidified as such. Prior to that, you've got people doing these different artistic pursuits in the same community, and going to the party was the central idea behind it, going to the party. And sometimes it would be called the jam or the jump off, or there's a Netflix show called The Get Down, because they used to call it going to the Get Down. And then somewhere along the line, this very important and, yes, complicated historical figure named DJ Africa Bambaataa told several reporters, when asked, what do you call all of that? He said, we call it hip hop. And there's a couple of reasons why he chose that phrase, but to hear him, I've spoken to him about this, and he said, I could have said we call it the jump off. I could have called it this one makes me laugh, the boyoyoing, which is like the sound a spring makes.
Right.
And they used to call it going to the boyoyoing.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So, but he said hip hop. So he's responsible for naming hip hop and then codifying what it is. He says there are four elements that make up hip hop culture, but they're held together with a fifth element. All right, let me explain. 4 of them are cited as core art forms associated with hip hop. DJing, specifically breakbeat DJing or turntablism, or essentially manipulating the record in some way. DJing. Rapping, speaking rhythmically to a beat, usually written in some kind of couplet form or with punchlines, but really trying to sound fly while talking. It's not melodic, it's rhythmic speaking. That's the difference between singing and rapping. Right? Then there's breaking, okay? The dance element, which today is not just breaking. We cite a lot of different dance forms as being associated with hip hop: popping, locking, crumping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Breaking, by the way, is going to be a major topic, because I alluded to dancers not getting enough love lately. Breaking is going to be in the Olympics this coming summer for the first time. So you're going to hear much discussed about that. All right. And by the way, I am rocking
Rep that.
my Rochester Fringe hoodie right now.
Yes.
And for the last almost decade, I've been involved with the hip hop dance battle at the
Fringe
Fringe
Fest?
Festival.
Ooh.
So let me give another round of applause and love to the city of Rochester for hosting such a thing. It's one of my favorite events of the year. You guys should come and catch a little footage next year.
That's cool.
Discuss, maybe get a panel of dancers in here, whatever.
Yeah.
So and then the 4th element is graffiti art, aerosol art, or style writing. Pick your favorite, whatever word you want to use. Love it. Okay. I could go more deeply into the history of each of those things, but fundamentally, those are the 4 cited elements of hip hop, and they are held together with the 5th element, which is knowledge. Knowledge doesn't necessarily mean information in this case. It means information, but it also means wisdom, understanding, developing a sense of you, knowledge of self, but also developing knowledge of others, developing a worldview, and most importantly, using the 4 core artistic hip-hop elements to generate knowledge, to transmit knowledge. It's a lens through which to look at the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what hip-hop really is. But again, the entertainment industry was like, Curtis Blow, when he takes his shirt off, oh, he's sexy, let's market him. First solo MC. Then comes LL Cool J, and Run DMC is Run DMC. Did you know there's a 3rd member of Run DMC? I'm being sarcastic when I say that. Of course, Jam Master Jay was the DJ, but the name of the group is Run DMC. Whereas previously, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. And so forth. Now, the Funky 4+1, maybe that's different. Those are the MCs. They don't make reference to Baron and Breakout, their DJs. Nevertheless, there's this evolution into the figure of the rapper.
Right.
Larger than life figure. That's what you, and we all, if I say Slick Rick, Moni Love, whatever. People go, oh, yeah. You can't quite put your finger on who their DJ was. Because there's this element in time where it gets lost. Speaking of Will Smith, by the way, shout out to them one more time. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince is the name of the group.
So he talked about that in the book, which is funny, about how that shift happened. So this is like, that's fascinating. So he did not in this great detail, of course, but he talked about this though.
I told you I was caffeinated, right?
Oh, good brother. No, I love that though. That's good. So, before I keep going, but we didn't do the qualifier. You want to qualify before I jump into this next question?
What do you mean?
You asked for the qualifier before we got in here. Hey, hip hop is something that I over time and learning to love and appreciate, but growing up with different forms of music.
Oh,
and
you told me not to say that.
The real qualifier, so people know I'm not playing her on the questions right now.
I told this man a while back that I was not raised to listen to hip hop by any means or forms, and anything I heard was really by accident or anything I saw, because I love me some graffiti, but it took I don't know how many years for me to put the two together and think that's one thing. You know what I mean?
It's not exactly a logical conclusion that those two things are connected. Right. It takes a person to say these things are connected.
Thank you. And so I was raised in a household that was very Caribbean and old school, and my mother hummed hymns, and my father played old school reggae. I don't rap and I'm from Brooklyn, so this is the shame.
Ain't no shame in that.
There's shame from me, because if I was outside of the house and with other kids who were not necessarily Caribbean, that's when I was hearing things, and that's when I knew who Biggie was, and that's when I heard some of the songs. Outside of that,
but you know what though? As hip hop, as we're hearing, it's not just music; it being a culture. You were hip hop.
Was I?
In different elements, though. Feel me? So I got your back.
It's a thing that has fuzzy, blurry boundaries.
I love this. I'm learning a lot.
And I also, I don't think there's a late point at which a person can begin to learn about hip hop.
I'm growing.
But but of course you understand that for some of us, it's been such a part of our life forever that our identity is very wrapped up in being a hip hop head.
Right.
And I try to rep that to the fullest, and I think there's a tremendous weight and responsibility in doing so. Right,
so, especially authentically.
I've always been interested in learning about the history. Way before, when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
I love that.
To me, that's important. The hunger for the knowledge, that fifth element. That's hip hop. So
I'm right there.
This is my point. Bingo. You ready?
That's hip hop.
I was about to say, don't do the video of that woman. It's this joke that goes on for a long time. This older white woman was doing a lot of these dances and saying that's hip hop. People have made fun of her.
The dance instructor.
Yeah. Look it up. It's funny.
You're not gonna do you like that. But okay, so question though. So one of the things that's I definitely linked, and the reason why I brought that up is hey, I'm asking all these questions. That's because I came with the questions. That's why I said that. No I'm not playing her because in future or past episodes, I say.
He would play me.
Yes.
All the time.
So here we go.
Don't try to play me out.
Yeah, I'm playing you right now. All right, so
yo-yo song.
Going back to this actually gets back to the connection from culture and music, all five elements really. But one of the things for me when I think about hip hop is the connection back to marginalized, especially Black and brown communities, right? And how strong that connection is, right? And I would love for you to speak to that, and then thinking about that connection. Well, one, I don't want to just assume you agree with that, but I'm just putting that out there. But then thinking about that connection, the evolution of that coming from really, in a way, being exclusively connected to us, now being really a mainstream, the number one listened to genre. What's your take on that?
Well, there's a lot of quite a lot to say about all those things. You just used the phrase exclusively connected to us. And that's true, but I think the us needs to be
defined,
much more defined and given a lot more nuance, right? And the singular word that speaks to what question you're asking me right now is community. All right. So community is a word today that we kind of colloquially use to refer to anybody, anywhere, of a particular identity.
Right.
I'm speaking about community in a geographical sense. All right. So as we mentioned earlier, this book that was the genesis of the Cornell Hip Hop Collection is called Born in the Bronx. And we talk about DJ Kool Herc doing these parties in the West Bronx. and that precipitating this notion of 50 years and so forth. The community of the Bronx in the 70s is what was the only exclusively ours that can truly say it was exclusively ours. And the reason I say that is because very rapidly it started to spread to different boroughs of New York City, different parts of the metro area, right? Jersey, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, whatever. And so at that point, you're starting to have other types of diversity involved in hip hop. But the phrase that I tend to use in classes, you've heard hip hop referred to as a, quote, black art form.
Yeah.
Okay, no doubt. That's a very broad and sort of conveniently easy and simple way to say it. I like to use the phrase black centered. Centered being a noun and a verb in that case. All right, so it revolves around fundamentally the black community in the Bronx, New York City, but in saying that, a lot of times people forget that the Latino community in the Bronx has always been present and involved. Maybe not at the center in the way that I'm saying intentionally. I'm using the word center, but centered being a verb it's an action continuing to center the black community, black issues, and so forth. And accordingly, to be a hip hop head, this is my cultural declaration. This is not written down anywhere. This is just kind of an understanding. And this is my declaration here in this context. To be a hip hop head is to value the black experience, strive to understand black history. And I would say that goes across the entire diaspora. And that's just part of, again, what? The fifth element. That is what it means to be a hip hop head. But also, you can't be insular and think that it's only about that.
Right.
It cannot be. It must not be. Hip-hop's original philosophies involved reaching across differences, building bridges, and going beyond what it is that you are and already know.
And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Because that at one point in time, I remember just with the 50 years coming up, there was a debate about exactly what you were saying, like it being a black art form. And I remember in that conversation, it was to the exclusion to the Latino community, right? And I remember that dialogue happening. I remember like even prominent folks who were like Fat Joe came out and talked about that. There was just like this big dialogue around that. And so, so you naming it and framing it that way around community in a geographical sense and going back to exclusively ours being linked back to that makes sense. And connecting it back to the black-centered idea. Because that whole dialogue was happening when the 50 years was coming up. Yeah. And I had forgot all about that.
Again, it must not be seen as anything that's exclusionary. Right. There's another old philosophy in hip-hop. It actually predates hip-hop, but it became very associated with hip-hop, and it's this very simple phrase: it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at. And I would couple that with another concept that we call show and prove. Show me and prove to me where you are mentally as a person. If you're down with this, then you're down with this. Now that kind of that positions some people as being the gatekeepers or those who have the power to say, okay, now you're down. But that does happen kind of all around us in communities all over the place. Kind of a human thing, right? So it ain't where you're from, it's where you're at mentally. All right. Now you use that phrase. It's no longer just ours, or maybe I'm paraphrasing when I say that. Hip hop is indeed global. Hip hop exists and is being created on all of the corners of the globe, every continent, in virtually every language, by people of every identity. Every racial or ethnic identity, every sexuality, every spectrum of everything in there, every geographic location, every religion, and every socioeconomic status. So what about that then? Does it water things down? Well, it really focuses the fact that hip-hop is but a medium in the way that paint is a medium. So it's not about whether or not you're painting. What are you painting? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of hip-hop out there that's being produced be it visual art, dance, something sonically, or something vocally. All right, it's of all the diversity you can potentially even comprehend. All right, vocally though, that's where we're using words. More so, well, graffiti writers certainly do use words, but not in the volume that the amount that rappers do. A lot of people just want to talk about one-dimensional, hedonistic, materialistic, and fundamentally unimpactful things. To great impact, though. See what I did there?
Right.
But your question is driving at how has the lyricism of hip-hop been used to unify communities or to give voice to the voiceless? And when we say the voiceless, we're talking about people who don't have a lot of influence politically or financially, but potentially culturally in society. So providing that medium, here's a way to say what's on your mind. Here's a way to tell the world that it is like a jungle sometimes, and you are wondering how it keeps from going under it. To quote,
I keep from going under.
To quote Melly Mel from Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5 on the Message 1982. Everybody, we could go down the road talking about that particular song, but I do cite that song particularly just because it generally represents the launch point of socially conscious hip hop lyrics. There are other moments before that where someone used the lyricism of hip hop rapping to express some kind of social commentary, but it wasn't until that song, 1982, that people really went, whoa, this can really, really be a way to express some hard truths. And it's not always about party music. As a matter of fact, the famous Cradle to the Grave rhyme on The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 is actually recorded in 79 on Super Rappin' by the same group, but it's a disco sounding kind of song, and it's like 12 minutes long, and it's at the end of the song, and nobody really heard it. Nevertheless, the point is somebody was using hip-hop lyricism for that, but because of this pressure to be all about parties, which that pendulum sure has swung this way, right? When it's all about parties, you have trouble getting a meaningful message out.
Absolutely.
And then we talk about TikTok, right? No, I'm just playing. So does that answer your question?
That's right.
This question you asked me, we could be here for 6
100%.
episodes.
Yeah, talking about it.
Talking about that. But I really, as I said, I just want to really emphasize that it's not that you're performing hip hop. It's how you're performing hip hop.
Yeah.
I know some amazing MCs that all they really talk about is, unimpactful things. Let's put it that way. Let's just put it that way. And then there's amazing MCs and even not so amazing MCs who choose amazing subject matter
which is good
to rhyme about.
And you know what's so going to that point about it being connection back to like communities who didn't have a platform or using a voice as a way to say a platform to be able to be visible and to be heard and be seen and valued, and hip hop doing that. And for somebody who might not be a hip hop historian, but like a consumer and somebody who like connects back to the music, that was or is and can be the value around hip hop. It's like I see myself resonating in this space where I might not see myself in other places and venues. And do you think that has been retained, right, over time? So what I mean by that is, I think that, and this is just me giving my opinion on this, I think that over time, like that impact or that message is still there, but I think it is more so diluted by things that don't carry that type of message.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, as I said, hip hop fundamentally did start off as party music.
Right.
So there's a tremendous importance for that, though. There's a release. There's a community bonding with regard to partying. There is a break, a momentary break from life's pressures and stresses. And I don't have any problems with that. As I said earlier, I happen to be a DJ.
Right.
And so I do play party music. People, I can't be playing Public Enemy for people trying to dance at a nightclub.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
It's tough.
Right.
On a rare occasion, I might do that.
Right.
But it's few and far between.
That's difficult. I got you.
Yeah.
So what I do know is that once the advent of headphones and portable music on cassette became a reality, people did start to go, I really there are moments in my life, actually a lot of moments in my life, where I just want to really listen to something of my choosing that is feeding my brain in a way that the party music might feed my soul and my body.
Right.
All right. So I don't know if maybe I misunderstand your question, but you're asking if it kind of dilutes or makes hip hop less impactful when there's not as much social commentary and lyricism. Is that
or I think maybe even a better way to ask that is, I think the way I view hip hop, or at least as we're learning now, the element of like the vocal element of hip hop.
Right.
The way I view that is that for a while has influenced the community and culture in such a way that it almost like mobilizes based on what you hear, right? And so like and I do think that it, like you said, started as party music, but going back to what you said, it was like folks were going to a place, like going to the get down, and then that community was there. And then as that became like broken up into, like you mentioned, the headphones, that experience connected to the party music was like the community is no longer as, it doesn't have to be that way now because of the way we can consume music. And so I think the social element became more important, as I'm kind of dissecting what you're saying. But I think that like conscious piece of it that came along as hip hop evolved and can impact the community, to me, is like less of that available, or like what's the most predominant thing or being pushed through like what we see from like the labels, for example, isn't that as much, you know? And I think that's influencing the community.
You just hit on the most important aspect of this entire question, the labels. All right. So I was talking before about the entertainment industry and how once it became involved with hip hop, there is a little bit of a schism there's the community and then there's the product coming out of the entertainment industry. Those two things overlap closely on a Venn diagram, but they're not the same thing. When you've got a record company whose main motivation is what? Profit. Profit motive, right? Your job is not to make sure that the product you're putting out there is the most responsible product or the most community unifying product, the most educational product or whatever. It's got to do with, well, the people are responding to this.
Right.
Let's give them more of that. Right. And that's kind of the best example of that is what we were in the late 80s and early 90s. There was this phenomenon known as gangster rap, okay? And it had to do with the music industry going, whoa, people really like this stuff. Let's do more of that. And it's quite a lot to say about all that, but you really have to become a conscious consumer. Right. You have to understand, when to flip that. I want to hear some ignorant music, or some not. Let me call it not so constructive lyricism.
That's a good way of putting it.
Not so constructive lyricism.
Right.
And then there's times when you really want to learn about some stuff. And part of, by the way, hip hop, as I said, is multi-generational.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
if I want to learn everything there is to learn about a singular subject, I can't rely on the artistic interpretation of that subject in a few rap songs.
Right.
That's going to be my entry point to hearing about it.
Right.
And that's good. I think that's one of the most powerful things about hip hop. It has to be cool. If it wasn't cool, if it didn't sound good, how else would you get that message out there? Right. So here's another interesting aspect of it. Today, I would wager that there's more socially conscious hip hop being produced right now at this very second than there ever has been before.
Really?
Why don't you know that, though? Because it's not what everyone's talking. We are compelled to talk yet again about the latest Drake album.
Right.
We are compelled to talk about the most popular stuff.
Right.
All the barbershop debates, all the people just kind of like hanging out, talking whatever, who's better than who. Like I said, kind of reducing these artists to athletes.
Right.
Who's got the better 3-point percentage?
Right.
Who's more aggressive off the dribble, whatever, to use basketball comparison.
Yeah.
All right. That's not what we should look at this as. As a matter of fact, we all have one of these. I'm talking about holding up my smartphone for the audio listeners. We all have one of those in our pocket now.
Right.
If you know how to Google socially conscious hip hop, you're gonna get led down a road of discovery there's more than you bargained for. There's more hip hop being produced right now than ever before. As I said, globally.
Right.
Some of it you won't understand. Maybe it's gonna force you to go, I should learn a little Farsi. I should learn some Mandarin. I should learn some Spanish. I should learn some Japanese and see what they're really talking about.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, that's a way of you understanding what's going on out there in the world. A little bit as an alternative to watching maybe the nightly news or something like that.
Right.
Although I think I think news consumption is kind of that's frankly a component of being a worldly citizen, and also thus a hip hop head who's really, really about the knowledge, finding information sources. So it can't just be about the music, but let's take this point of young people. Young people who aren't gonna flip on Lester Holt on the nightly news. They're going to be listening to music.
Right.
But the young people who are listening to music, ask somebody out there, go find a 15-year-old and ask them what's the last 100 songs they listened to. Look at their Spotify history. Look at their YouTube history. And let's find out what they're consuming as a pattern. There's where we hit the biggest problem, I think, is that there's an imbalance and there's not an emphasis. Maybe in the 80s, people were using phrases like "do the knowledge," right? You were talking about what knowledge are you gonna kick to me today about something, and people had a desire to sound knowledgeable about something, whereas hip hop today is an extension of social media. It's a TikTok catchy. Here's a catchy video. Let's give this kid a record contract so that everyone can memorize their very simple song. Let's de-emphasize that they should be original. Let's de-emphasize that rapping is supposed to be about skill and flow and delivery and creativity. That's been de-emphasized. All right? Let's de-emphasize sonic innovation and try to consciously make every beat sound the same. And the young people are none the wiser. They're going to kind of go along with it. You cannot blame the young people. I do think you have to look at the different forces in the entertainment industry, which is TikTok mostly. Meaning social media, web technologies and stuff. So with all of that, I know I'm rambling here, but it's really, I think that this is crucial.
This is crucial.
And I think anybody who listens to this show is actively trying to figure this out. Why does it appear that conscious hip hop has gone away? It hasn't gone away. It's just not put in front of you as actively as maybe it once had. Ironically, we all have the power to find it with a few clicks. But we don't do that.
You just got to mine for it. Not even really mine for it. It's there. You just got to have to.
You don't know what you don't know. Like, you don't even know to look for it because you don't think it exists. Like, that's good to know.
There's a whole generation that thinks hip hop is just kind of ratchet lyrics.
Unfortunately.
It's the music about money and strippers and stuff of that nature. And again, that has its place. I don't mean to knock that as a concept, but it's
not.
It's like eating junk food for every meal. You can't eat junk food for every meal.
It's good.
And expect to be healthy. Or balanced.
Bars. So spoken. I hear you.
Can it be?
I say she's from Brooklyn, y'all. Of course, it's natural. So, but I got two more questions. I know we going on time, and I don't want to keep you too long. But two more questions, and then you can share whatever you want that you think folks should hear, because I want to make sure they have that. You to just share what you think is important on the platform. So first question is, what are your thoughts about like the history of women in hip hop, like how that started to now? Because from the outside looking in, and I'm realizing you have the historical knowledge, it seems like, especially from, again, the lyrical form of hip hop or the MC or the vocalist, that it's a male dominated industry in that, right? So thoughts on that. And then where did it start to where it is now as far as like women in hip hop?
There's so much to say, and I do love this subject, actually. I should start off by saying my first recollection of a woman in hip hop was listening to Roxanne Shante circa 86, 87 as a kid. And not ever feeling like it was, whoa, that's kind of weird, a woman in hip hop. That was very natural. MC Lyte, L Boogie, aka Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, right? And I'm just like, all these names are flooding to my mind, and it makes me think about how interesting it is that the history of women in hip hop seems seems so mysterious to people. Women have certainly always been a part of hip hop. That's not to say you're not right, which is double negative. It's not to say you're not right.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But it is a male, quote, male-dominated art form. And a lot of that has to do with, number one, there's quite a lot of aggressive energy involved in battles. Somewhere along the line, people started to value aggressive, boastful MCs. And somewhere along the line, I think that really turned off some women to participating in hip hop. Now, women have always been in the audience of hip hop. And I think, frankly, in my opinion, the audience should have been the fifth element. And knowledge should be the sixth. I think the crowd is so important. But let's talk about just the first woman I'm aware of in my research about hip hop is MC Sha Rock. MC Sha Rock was in that group I mentioned earlier, the Funky 4+1. MC Sha Rock, who I've met and hung out with and who is a beautiful human being, did her thing. And she was a fantastic MC. She wasn't compelled to present herself as a sexual object.
Right.
And there's a difference between looking sexy and presenting yourself as a sexual object. There's a difference there. But she was very feminine despite that. But it wasn't about how she looked.
Gotcha.
It just wasn't about how she looked. And you can fast forward through a lot of MCs who are beautiful women, but it's not, you don't think of them as like, oh, she's kind of being given this platform because of how she looks.
Right.
I think that's an interesting, relatively recent thing that without a particular look, you're not going to become a successful
Absolutely.
rapper. And I think that's corrosive.
Yeah.
But I also understand why that's happening. You know, everyone has a short attention span. You're going to stop and look if you see something you think is like attractive on screen. MC Sha Rock, first woman MC. Fast forward all the way to today, there's MC Sa Rock, S-A-R-O-C. Sha Rock was S-H-A-R-O-C-K. So Sha Rock to Sa Rock is how my brain thinks of this. Sa Rock is an MC. She's, let me see, I believe she's from D.C. and now is in Atlanta. Somebody might correct me if I'm wrong by looking that up, but she is one of the dopest MCs I've heard in the last 20 years. Hyper politically conscious. Hyper dense and knowledgeable in her lyrical content. And if you haven't heard of her, it's because of just that.
Right.
Her art form is not as marketable to a 13-year-old.
Right.
Unless there's a remarkable 13-year-old who wants to go against the grain.
Right. Go back to what we were just talking about.
And learn about stuff.
Right.
Okay? So there's so much to be said about women in hip hop. I don't want to run out of time because this will be another hour discussion. But we could really go through the entire history of women in hip hop in all the disciplines, all the art forms, right? Graffiti, I'm gonna go back to Lady Pink, for example. Lady Pink, all the people out there listening who consider themselves a real hip hop head. Real is a judgment word here, right?
I'm with you.
If you're a hardcore hip hop head,
yeah, we know what you're saying here. I got you.
You've probably heard of the movie Wild Style, and you should go watch that movie if you haven't. But that movie represents the conclusion of what I like to call the pioneer era, hip hop's first decade, 73 to 83. Lady Pink she's a graffiti artist. She's a golden age graffiti goddess. She happens to play opposite of Lee Quiñones as the lead characters of this film. The first film about hip hop features two Latino graffiti artists as the main characters.
Wow.
First film about hip hop. We happen to have the archive of that film, by the way. So people are deeply into it. Hit me up.
Is it a part of the collection?
Yeah.
It's
the shooting schedules, the script treatments, photographs on set, test footage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what our archives are. They're not. Don't think of museum pieces. Like you walk into a museum and you see like George Clinton's like mothership hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, right.
That's a museum piece.
Right.
We have documentation, photographs, audiovisual stuff that you can learn from in a research sense, right?
Love that.
Anyway, again, women flooding to mind, right? DJ Jazzy Joyce and Sweet Tea, and as I mentioned, El Boogie a minute ago, Lauryn Hill from the Fugees, best rap album of, actually it was the best album of '98.
Yeah.
Students today, I taught, the freshmen, I work at a university, freshmen this year were born in 05. A lot of them haven't heard of Lauryn Hill. And that has to do,
wow.
Now why is that? It's because you have to have this like
That
constant
hurts.
staying power.
Yeah, 100%.
Unfortunately.
Or they've become very, very used to what we would call one-hit wonders or flash in the pan
Yes.
or here today, gone tomorrow type
100%.
artists. And that's a big problem with the music industry, not developing these artists, and helping them to reach new heights in their careers. I mean, there's a few outliers. You do have your Nas's, you do have your Rootses and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of them. And young people definitely not listening to Nas, definitely not listening.
Right.
And if you are, listen, if you're listening to this and you're a young person under 20 and you're listening to music that came before your lifetime, shout out to you, kudos to you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really important aspect of being a hip hop head. And I hope you can carry that forward and share it with some of your peers. I do know some young people who are very, very good about listening to music that comes before them. And I think excellent parenting has something to do with that.
Yeah.
But
Love it.
there's a lot more to say about music. We running out of time.
No. Listen, we got one more question we're gonna hit you with. Like this is it. Let me hit
But
you
shout
with
out to
this
the ladies. Ladies first.
one. Come on now. In hip hop.
That's what we like to hear.
We had to bring that. It's like, come on now.
Say it more.
One other thing I should say is that the dancers, oh my Lord, I think you need to go to a the hip hop dance competition. Just look at the female dancers and how just extraordinary they are. B-girls, other types of dancers have always been a major component of hip hop for sure.
So one thing I actually am learning, before I ask you this last question, is we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
And one of my closest guys who I actually I went to school with, he's a hip hop head for sure, Sean. And he would love to be here, like hearing that. He's gonna be so fired up here in this podcast. So I just gotta let you know, we gotta get this part 2 of this.
What up, Sean? What's going on?
Yes, and before I ask you this last question, we gotta make sure we don't forget. We gotta shout out to a quick break in action. A shout out to one of our amazing YBF supporters. Help me with her name now. We know her. We know her. Come on, Barbara.
Barbara.
It is
Barbara, yes.
Shout out to Barbara. Listen,
Barbara, all the way
you.
from Germany.
Yes.
We love you, and
Yes.
we've gotten your messages, and we appreciate everything
We
you said.
appreciate you, and we hope you're loving this episode for sure.
How
Thanks for
cool is
listening.
that?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that's dope.
She's lovely.
So last question. This one's like viscerally important to me because I feel a sense of, and I don't say this in like a bad way, but like ownership to hip hop. Like, this is a part of me and like a part of the identity and what shaped me in that. And so I often think about the future of hip hop. Right.
I'm not a big Future fan. Is he still making music?
Hey, it's bars. That was good.
I'm just playing.
But
I love how he thinks.
I'm just
I
playing.
agree.
But
No, it's not.
actually, I ain't gonna lie. Future just dropped a song. That was tough.
I'm just playing.
No, I'm playing. But no, in all seriousness, like I often worry about that, and I worry, but that might be a proverbial slip. I also wonder about that. Where do you? And that's a loaded question, right? But how do you feel about? What are you thinking about the future of where we're going with hip hop? Being somebody who like really embodies that fifth element and knows like the knowledge and like the history,
The understanding.
How do you see where it's going? How do you feel about it?
I share your concerns about that, but that's a concern I've probably had since the early 90s with the flood of gangster rap that started to really seem to dilute things for me, or seem to be, there's a terrible over-representation of quote-unquote gangster rap. That's not to say there wasn't more of a balance. Of course there was at that time. But I remember feeling like, man, this is another copycat gangster rapper they're putting out here. Just another copycat. So, and then you get into the sort what they might call the jiggy era with all the shiny suits and over talking about over representation of like brand names and champagne and talking about wealth and things like that. And financial education, by the way, shout out to y'all for that recent financial education and student debt episode. That is important stuff to talk about. But just talking about getting some expensive stuff all the time doesn't really advance people's financial knowledge and so forth. So I just remember feeling like, wow, this is getting diluted. And for what that did for me in the 90s is it and a lot of people of a similar mindset is it made us become what at the time was known as like underground hip hop heads.
Oh, gotcha.
And the point of that was there was a lot of stuff being produced that was, very intentionally artistic and innovative and lyrically dense and stuff that wasn't designed for mainstream radio consumption or being on heavy rotation on MTV or BET or VH1, which used to be the music video channels.
Yeah.
Right.
It's something that I feel has been a slow burn for a long time. But I'm always rejuvenated when I do see that there are some excellent hip hop artists still out there in the world today. And every now and again, one of them does break through into the mainstream. What I have lost is faith in the mainstream channels to put it in front of you.
Got it.
The mainstream entertainment industry is going to continue because they have the evidence of the dollars.
Yeah.
That the BS sells.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same goes for anyone out there who thinks that rap music is some kind of societal problem. Go look at the profits of the latest John Wick series. Go look at the latest Fast and Furious, whatever. All right? Go look at, it's pervasive throughout society. 100%. It's kind of like dollar motivated, give the people what's less healthy for them sort of thing. So you are charged as a hip hop head to learn about that and to seek beyond what is presented right in front of you.
Right.
All right, to find the good stuff that's really out there. You need and connect with heads. All right, hip hop is so multi-generational now that there's plenty of so-called old heads like me, which I'm not using that as a pejorative term. I earn these gray hairs right here. Okay. I have knowledge that I want to give you. And I absolutely love the intergenerational dialogue that I get to have with students. But I love learning about what they're into because every now and again, they put me on to something that I previously didn't know about.
Right.
And the same goes for the requests I get as a DJ sometimes. I'm like, oh, actually, that was kind of fly. A lot of time it is sort of like, ooh, that's... I don't want anybody to think I chose this song right here.
That's funny.
But it's a rare occasion. So about the future of hip hop, do not expect the entertainment industry
to
as an organism.
Right.
It's not about which particular company or which particular CEO is out there. Don't expect it to suddenly start putting front and center all of this mentally nutritious stuff. They're going to keep throwing the junk food out there.
Right.
All right. I don't know where hip hop itself is going to go, in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. What I do know is that the archives, because of us at Cornell and because of other institutions doing similar work, we are all in the belly of that beast doing that kind. All those people are on my team. As far as I'm concerned, anybody preserving hip hop's history gives future generations something to learn from and be inspired by.
Yeah.
All right. And culture is cyclical. It is not a straight line.
Right.
So there's things that you reference back. Think the art of sampling is a great example of it. Hip hop demands that you look backwards and reinvent or reuse or reinterpret something that came before. That's the essence of hip hop. Hip hop is a collage. Okay? Hip hop is a collage.
That was good.
All right? Back in the day, you would see music critics say, oh, they were just stealing the music of so-and-so. No. You got to retool your thinking. It's a collage artist, fundamentally. All right? And there's always going to be something important, something troublesome, something confusing going on in the world, in humanity. Right. No matter, you could fast forward 500 years from now, there's going to be some kind of strife going on in society. So there's something for a vocalist to talk about. Is their vocal delivery going to be radically different than it is today? Of course. Are they going to still call it hip hop? I think that's irrelevant. I think the point is hip hop that has happened has been preserved, and it gives people going forward some knowledge of what existed. Because if they're, again, they're gonna have to go beyond what's right out there and presented right in front of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then this is to say nothing about what impact artificial intelligence is going to have. Right. Perhaps you've seen that people are able to feed instructions into a chat bot like ChatGPT. Write a hip hop song about this, and make it sound like it's in the style of so-and-so. And the more specific you are in giving those instructions to ChatGPT, the more it's going to generate artificially a song or even a beat. Sometimes it's going to be an image. Create a graffiti piece that looks like in the style of so-and-so using these colors that says this word. I don't know to what extent that's going to impact things, but it's going to impact things.
Absolutely.
It already is impacting things, which is why it's that much more important to be able to look back and see how people were doing it before all of that.
Right.
Okay, so we don't lose our humanistic sense of what it is to create from these brains right here, not simply provide the right instructions to that brain over there. So I know that's a little esoteric right there.
Well, it's not,
and
though.
I want to say shout out to my man, Mayor. Mayor is a legendary graffiti god who likes to talk quite a lot about the impacts of artificial intelligence and the legacy of hip-hop artists and using the likeness of hip-hop artists. So shout out to Mayor.
Yeah, and you said esoteric, but no, I think that's right on point. It's like it's going to be very pragmatic soon because of what's hit now.
It's here.
Yes, and we got some very recent experiences with some of these
Yes,
ChatGPT.
we do.
But no,
there are positives and negatives everywhere.
All that. But we want to say we appreciate you. Listen,
I appreciate y'all.
We want to give you flowers right now because that was fire.
Hey,
listen.
I know something now.
Yeah, stop playing.
You feel like you grew right before your eyes.
Have I helped you figure it out?
Literally.
Oh, listen, we there. That's all right. What did you figure out today? For the next episode, we're going to start right here. Hip-hop. But listen, they probably listening right now like, what in the world are they talking about? Listen, we might be right.
We might be wrong.
But at the end of the day,
we just young, black, and figuring it out.